Welcome, listeners and viewers, to episode 4 of Across the Pond, or Across the Pondcast, with Martin and I. Martin wants to say hello to people.
Hi, everyone. Lovely to see you all again.
Yes, and so today I'm really excited. We're going to be super quick, and I do apologize for that, but if you are following anything related to e-cigarettes in the United States right now, the world is on fire for a lot of small businesses, and we still have one more week left of seeing what the FDA is going to do. But today I've got Char Owen, who is taking, a limited amount of time out of her day to actually join us, and I thank her for that. She's the vice president of the American Vapors Manufacturing Association, American Vapors Manufacturers Association, and also a good friend of mine. I've done work with her over the past year on the very issue of electronic cigarettes and vaping devices in America. Char, do you want to say hello to everybody?
Hi, Lindsay. How are you?
I'm fantastic.
You're always fantastic. House on fire. Lindsay's great.
Numb today. I'm very numb today. So, Char, so people know, Char Owen, the listeners who aren't really aware of the vapor industry in America. Char has her own e-liquid company, and she's helped out over hundreds of small businesses through their PMTA process. Char, can you tell our viewers a little bit more about that?
Well, yeah, we had done, and hilariously, we had done a smaller, what we called a skinny PMTA, something that was affordable to small business, and we had done it to basically move an industry into a regulation, into being regulated by the FDA, which we thought was a good thing. Play by the rules, get us all into regulation so that we can become team players with the FDA, do the whole hand-in-hand thing, and then and now we've basically had our feet kicked out from underneath us, and the industry then scatters to become unregulated, which is exactly the opposite of what we have been trying to do for the past 2 years, is to move an industry into FDA regulation. And we had gotten very successfully people in our small business group into the deficiency letter phase. So, it wasn't as if our PMTs were lacking in that area. This is a severe policy shift in the FDA. This is not something that is lacking for the job that they've done, that the small business have done. And it didn't matter if you were small business. There are those that have spent millions on their PMTA and got the exact same treatment from the FDA. So big business, small business, really didn't matter. You got the same treatment. We were told going into this that you'd better be looking at those analytical testing data, be Johnny on the spot with that. And now all of a sudden it's a 180 swap, and you don't have this, so this is what we really wanted, and so out you go.
I should probably backtrack for our viewers that are not familiar with this, and then Martin can kind of help with this. The PMTA is the pre-market tobacco product application, which all new tobacco products, any product containing tobacco that came out to market in the United States post 2007 is subject to going through either the PMTA or a couple different other pathways with the U.S. Food and Drug Administration in order to legally market their product. And due to a lot of legal maneuverings and a lot of pressure from Bloomberg-funded anti-tobacco and vaping people, the deadline now for every product that's pretty much been entered into market is September 9, 2021. Which most of those products had to have had an application given to the agency by September 9, 2020. So we've got literally, less than a week before the FDA has to signal stuff. Now, Martin, Char, thank you once again for coming on. One of the reasons I wanted you and Martin to get together is because he's in the UK. Martin, you want to ask her any questions about just the differences in how the UK government regulates such products and how the United States is doing it, and maybe your thoughts and questions you might have to her?
Yeah, I think the main difference that I can see is that in the UK, the government has already decided that e-cigarettes and vaping products are safer for the, or the, what the term is for the protection of public health. They've identified that more smokers are using them to quit smoking, and that the threat for youth of using nicotine is far lower than what seems to be happening in America. They've already made that decision. So over here, we've sort of fell in with the EU Tobacco Products Directive, and products have to be notified to the MHRA, Medicines Health and Regulatory Agency, and then if there's no objections after 6 months, then they can just go ahead and sell them. And the government has put forward a whole list of ingredients that should not be in the liquids, for example. So they've said, we don't like these liquids, they shouldn't be in any liquid, and if they are, then they won't be allowed to be sold. Apart from that, they're kind of thinking, well, it's the opposite for the USA. I mean, I read an article today in The Guardian, which was talking about how there's no evidence yet that e-cigarettes are safe. Whereas you could also say there's also no evidence of any harm yet. You know, it's all theoretical.
Well,
so the UK seems to be coming out with, well, we'll assume that there's not much harm until we get evidence of a lot of harm, and then we can act on it. Whereas the US seems to be saying, well, we haven't got any evidence of safety, so you have to prove to us with RCTs and cohort trials and everything else that there's never going to be a problem. And it seems an impossible hurdle to jump. It's just it's too high a bar that they're setting.
Well, when you look at a cohort study, you're talking about a 30-year trial. So, but when you're also when we're talking science, in more than just vaping, okay, so this goes well past vaping. When you look at the United States and how their general medical and vaping and harm reduction, how our general scientific field is going is we're really straying very far from science. We're going more towards causation. We're straying very far from where we should be. It's getting very closer to whoever pays for the research determines how that research actually goes. And so it's very hard anymore to weed through any data and come out with viable data. Unlike in the UK, I can do that quite easily with most papers that your medical field or researchers put out. It's very, very easy. They are very, very good about allowing me to say, you know, I don't see a lot of papers, in other words, on your end that have a lot of where I would concern myself with, all right, he may not be, have the best intentions here. He may have gone a little far askew on one side or the other. They're very, very well balanced papers, unlike in the US at this point, where you can just within the first literally the first paragraph, you can almost determine where this is going. They clearly state right up front their own ideology. They have their own agenda right up front, and you can tell how it's going. And so you can generally tell who paid for the study. So, and you get down to the end, and of course, at that point who paid for the study. So it's very different.
It looks like they're only issuing stuff for open e-liquid end systems, that electronic nicotine delivery systems that are non-tobacco flavored. What are you seeing, I guess in terms of like why the FDA is just blanketly, like why are they just denying these flavored products?
And they're blanket denial because basically you've got to prove to me that the benefit for the adult population is greater than the risk for youth. Okay, so those scales have to balance for them. At this point, you have to tell me that it's in other words, somebody got to them to say, hey, this youth epidemic has got to be stopped. So, and it was several senators. So it's very politically based. We have a system where the politicians are now leading our FDA, and they're determining how our PMTAs are being processed. The politicians are now determining the outcome of our PMTAs, which is a problem because this should be led by science and not by politicians at this point. And it is definitely being determined by politicians. So, and of course that's my opinion, but it is my opinion. That is what we're seeing.
No, I just made a note basically along the same lines that it seems to be in America, it's an emotional reaction to e-cigarettes, and it's a financial one with Bloomberg, and a political one.
Absolutely.
Exactly like you said, it should be scientific and objective, and it's not that at all in America, it seems to me.
We have very branched off. We have very much branched off from the science, and not only in this aspect of harm reduction, but in many, many, many others. We have branched off from the scientific to be very much political in our viewpoints about how we're doing science. It's become a political arena, and science should never be a political arena. You're talking about the Royal Physician, College of Physicians, and that's a huge number of physicians, huge, that all come to a conclusive, oh my word, try to get that many politicians to come to that big of a conclusion, good luck with that one. So, you've got a massive amount of doctors that have come to a conclusion, and I can't, I can't, utmost respect for that number of physicians, for the opinions of that many physicians. You got to take that. You got to take that where it is. You got to take that as, that's pretty much gospel for me. And then you've got on the American side, you've got a handful of politicians that are literally running the show. So if I'm going to go one way or the other, it's probably not going to go with a handful of politicians. So, and I hope that the world sees that for what it actually is. Definitely over the pond, definitely do not follow in the tracks of what we're doing, because it is not science. And it definitely should be science. What I've been trying to put forward here is relabeling and renaming and kind of mimicking what the UK did with their cigarette program, which is honestly sorely asinine, because we're harm reduction, and it should be the opposite. You should see cigarettes like y'all have it, where you should have plain labeling for cigarettes. But at any point in time, can we relabel e-liquid to where it is that very plain, so that we can outweigh the benefit, and if youth, and the bad part is like 90 someone, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong on the numbers here, but a huge proportion of this, what AVM does is all open system e-liquid, and I don't know, it's like what, 5% of that whole youth use, maybe open system e-liquid, and these are all the, it's like 2%, something like that.
Yeah, and it's probably even less now if they started distinguishing it in terms of with the disposables. Most of the studies that are done on when the variations, and for our listeners that don't know, there's lots of different types of e-cigarette products per the FDA. The ones that we are overwhelmingly talking about in this podcast right now are open systems. So the bigger systems that you pre-fill with your own liquid on there, and we're talking about the liquids, but you've got the pods, pre-filled pods, and then you also have the disposables, which now are the number one product cited by youth, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Char, the FDA hasn't issued anything on them.
Nope.
Right?
Nope, they are still on the market. They are still going forward. They are still working for them. They're still available to everyone, but the ones they are taking off the market are not the ones youth are using.
By the way,
they are.
I hate to tell you about this, but I know the one person that we talked to yesterday about, that got the MDO order, they've got pretty plain labels.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't have anything to do, frankly, it's all about the flavoring, and it doesn't really even, I mean, they're denying unflavored, in which we have unflavored in our line, and literally the name is unflavored. So I mean, it's not youth appealing. It's called unflavored, but they are denying all of those, and those kinds of things that we do for our diabetic vapors, because a lot of flavorings and things like that do have sucrose and things that could potentially spike their blood sugars. And so we have unflavored for our diabetic. And, you know, and even some, kosher and things like that, we have a lot of things for people that have special needs. So diabetes being one of them, and a lot of people have dye issues and certain other kinds of issues and inflammatory issues, and so we try to keep that unflavored there for anybody who just does not want anything added to it.
Ironically,
So, and those are,
tobacco flavor is a flavor, which you see.
it is a flavor.
And unflavored, isn't it?
I know unflavored is not flavored at all, and should be like a literally check in the box, go through, because it's just literally a base, but that is literally getting denied. And a tobacco, which is all a flavor, it's not even a natural flavor, it's a synthetic flavoring, is going right through. So there is no method to the madness. In fact, one lady's unflavored did go through, but it was because she had accidentally listed in her characterizing flavor, her unflavored, as tobacco. So they're not even looking at what's actually in these things. They're just looking at this one column. And I could have put strawberry watermelon in the recipe, but if that column accidentally said tobacco, it will get approved.
I saw that, but like, and I was, I really just hate this process. Okay. I mean, I feel like I'm getting flashbacks to this week last year, but I was like, man, I should have just done like all of those and just put tobacco flavor and all their characterizing
On
flavor.
Everything. I might have gotten a deficiency, but I wouldn't have been in the middle of a flavor ban, right?
Exactly. So
yeah.
I don't want to keep you so long, okay? And again, thank you. My last question, I don't know if Martin has more questions for you, but I know my last question is just going to be, what's moving forward.
Moving forward is we pivot. We do what we need to do to stay alive right now, but we continue moving forward with these PMTAs. Ultimately, the goal is to get the industry regulated and get that tag for appropriate for the protection of public health. So that's our end game. It's still our end game, and hopefully the FDA will come to the table with us and help us get there. So that's the best option.
I just got one quick question, because obviously I'm intrigued about your dealings with the FDA. Have you been sort of fairly on friendly terms with the FDA before this?
Absolutely. And when you get down to the individual level, there, the people are amazing. Absolutely. Just talking to them individually, they are awesome. Helpful, very helpful. Haven't had any issues working with any of them, have not had an unfriendly person there. It's policy level where it becomes a problem. Once they do those policies, there's no fighting it.
And she's absolutely correct on that one. It is an intriguing agency, but the individual people have been so helpful. And I mean, sure, actually, I mean, you can explain this more than I do. Like, the FDA was utterly unprepared, like since 2016, to even be able to regulate this industry, even down to, when the deeming regulations came out, all these e-liquid companies were required to do ingredient listings. And Char, didn't you help the FDA, like with a group of other people, like help them change their
Oh, yeah. They didn't even have an intake form to be able to put us in the system because we had never done that before. So, this is all new. We didn't even have and Scott Gottlieb keeps repeating over and over again, hey, these guys had all this time to put in a PMTA. Why have they waited? We didn't, it was a month after the Maryland case that we actually got guidance finally. We didn't get a draft guidance till a month after they said we have to have this stuff filed. So once I got the guidance, I started working on it immediately. And then that's when we created the sharing group, and that's when everybody started putting together their PMTAs. But before that, we literally had no hope or no path of what they even wanted in it. So none of us, of course, had ever done it before, so it's not like we can guess.
And I'm going to keep thanking you. All right. I do have to also like a personal shout out to her, like Char, when she got me involved with the PMTA sharing group last year, she taught me so much more about e-liquids and like the actual, like, innards of what tobacco harm reduction is. And I really appreciate you for that.
We just have to keep moving forward, Lindsay.
Oh.
I mean, I think that's the key is that, I think the FDA is sorely mistaken if they think that we're gonna just roll over and not be regulated. We're going for that appropriate for protection of public health, and we're not going away.
No, not at all. Well, Char, thank you for joining us today. Martin, thank you for joining us, always during your evening.
Yeah, I'd just like to say I admire your optimism, Char, and I hope somehow something shakes them all out a bit at some point in the future.
I'll shake them up if it doesn't happen automatically.
Well, listeners and viewers, thank you for joining us again. Sorry, it was a very quick show, but and once again, the world is on fire here. For more episodes of our Across the Pond podcast, you can check them out on our Facebook page and our YouTube page. And if you've got any questions or suggestions, you can always reach out to me or Martin. Thank you again.